If you're a searcher and if you think pleasures will do it and bucks will do it and things will do it and stuff that you can build and perfect will do it, stop. You won't do it. You can never go the limit Solomon went. He went further than any of us will ever go, and he said, it won't do it. Abraham to the Middle East Crisis is a fine book by a fellow named G. Frederick Owen. In it, he describes Solomon in brief terms, but very, very vividly. To share them with you. Maddened with the love of show, Solomon swung into a feverish career of wastefulness, impropriety, and oppression. Not satisfied with the necessary buildings and legitimate progress of his past years, he overburdened his people with taxation, enslaved some, and ruthlessly instigated the murder of others. All Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and those of his house of pure gold. The shields of his mighty men were made of beaten gold, and his great throne was made of ivory and overlaid with the finest gold. Silver in Jerusalem became as common as stones. Solomon literally built himself a paradise of pleasure. One of his chief resorts was Etham, where when the mornings were beautiful, listen to this, he often went in stately progress, dressed in snow-white raiment, riding in his chariot of state, which was made of the finest cedar, decked with gold and silver and purple, and carpeted with the costliest tapestry, worked by the daughters of Jerusalem. He was attended by a bodyguard of 60 valiant men of the tallest and handsomest of the young Israelis, arrayed in Tyrian purple, with their long black hair freshly sprinkled with gold dust every day, glittering in the sun. Solomon, like many another absolute monarch, drove too fast and traveled too far. He became debauched and effeminate, an egotist, a cynic, so satiated with the sensual and material affairs of life that he became skeptical of everything good. To him, all became vanity and futility. Look at verse 20. I completely despaired. Look at those words. I completely despaired of all the fruit of my labor, for which I had labored under the sun. That's a man in midlife crisis, if you've ever read him. It's almost a sense of self-pity. I've worked and worked and worked. I've labored hard. I've worked my fingers to the bone to put together all of life. And what do I have to show for it? Some cynic answers, bony fingers. That's all you've got. And he looks at his hands that are empty. He looks at his life that's empty. He looks at his soul that's filled with guilt. And he says, verse 24, there's nothing better for a man to do than eat, drink, and tell himself his labor is good. Just keep pressing on. And that's what 95% of the people you run into are saying. Just keep going. Just keep going. Don't stop and ask. Just keep going. God says, put on the brakes. You keep going, you'll dangle from a rope. Stop. Preferably stop while you're young. Solomon turns to fatalism in chapter 3. There's a time for this, there's a time for that. Then there's a humanism that comes into the scene. I know, verse 12, that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and do good in one's lifetime. Verse 15, that which has been already and that which will be has already been, for God seeks what has passed by. I have seen under the sun that in the place of justice there's wickedness, in the place of righteousness there is wickedness, and I'm confused. Verse 20, we all go to the same place. Why sweat it? That's cynicism to the maximum. There's a smattering of agnosticism as well as universalism all the way through. Hold your place here and look at Proverbs 14:12. There is a way which seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. You've heard the verse and maybe didn't quite know where to put your finger on it. There it is. There is a way that seems right, but it doesn't satisfy. Listen to the commercials, view the films, read the media, check it out regularly. You will hear it pulsating. There's always something new, something different, something brighter, something larger, something softer, something with a better aroma, something more. Solomon says, without God, nothing will do it. Nothing. So chapter 4, he begins to observe. He's not involved now, he's just observing. Maybe he's getting tired. He observes oppression, chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. He sees poverty, he sees pain, he sees abuse, he sees crime, he sees the social life, and he says it's better not to be born. In verses 4 through 6, he looks at industry and idleness, and he says the industrious is envied by his neighbor, and the idle doesn't get the job done, and it caves in on him. You can't win one way or the other. He looks at solitude and loneliness in verses 7 and 8. He looks at companionship in verses 9 through 12, and that doesn't fit. And he looks 13 through 16 at popularity, and that doesn't fit. He says in the last part of verse 16, it's all vanity and striving after wind. Chapter 5, the same. Chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8, 9, 10, until chapter 11. Chapter 11, there's a switch. The whole smorgasbord is sort of passed in review. And now he begins to pass along a little advice. He's come to a pause in his pursuits, and he says it's time to write a chapter. And maybe someone someday will read it. In verses 1 through 6, he talks about the investment of your life. In verses 7 through 8, the enjoyment of life. And 9 and 10, the end of life. You want a good devotional to bring to a secular group? Have at it. There it is, right in front of you. Is life worth spending? If it's worth spending, it's worth spending on someone other than myself. I've learned that, says Solomon. Cast your bread on the waters, for you'll find it after many days. There's a risk involved. There's a risk in dividing your portion to 7 or even 8. You don't know what may occur, but let it go. Release it. Have you accrued something? Let it out. Let it go. Has God blessed you with material goods? Share those material goods. Don't die with a big sack full of them. What good will it do in a box? Don't leave it for the state. They'll rip it off. Give it to your kids. Give it to the ministry of good things. Watch eternal things bloom and blossom. Cast your bread out there on the waters. Enjoy what life is about. Look at verse 9. I can see Solomon like a professor leaning across a desk, and he says, young man, listen to me right now. Got it? He says, rejoice, young man, in your youth, and let your heart make you happy in the days of your youth, and walk in the ways of your own desire, and let your eyes be satisfied and your heart be pleased. But for all of this, God will bring you into account. Ever had your daddy tell you that? Maybe never. That daddy is telling you that tonight. That daddy cares enough for you as his child to tell you the truth before you get scarred. You think it's fun and games to mess around, have at it, relax, blow it, let it all out? Let me tell you, says Solomon, whose body was probably racked by venereal disease, whose mind was beginning to crack. whose whole structure for living was being altered and shifted and changed. Let me tell you, says Solomon, God brings you into judgment and you haven't been dealt with like He can deal with you. Remove vexation from your heart. Put pain away from your body. Childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. When you get old, you start talking like that. Oh, remember how things used to be. Or, oh, if I had it to do over again. And all of that. What are we doing? We're reflecting back on the prime of life. And as I look out into your faces, I see most of you in the prime of life. I think, what a relevant message. A hitch in the Marine Corps did more for me than any 20 years in a seminary would ever do regarding life. I saw it in the raw, I mean filthy raw of life. By the grace of God, I've experienced a protective shield from the blast of the flesh, but it was tough. But as a result of that perspective God gave me, I was able to minister only for a few months, 18 months on an island overseas. But I tell you, I saw men picked up from the gutter. One young man stumbled in on a New Year's night, and I happened to be there writing a letter to my wife. I was the only one, I think, in the world at the base on New Year's night. And I heard the door open, and I heard him crying. 19-year-old young man from Idaho. He shuffled down and ran into several lockers on the way down, and he fell over in his vomit right behind me, right where I was sitting. I turned around and I called him by name, and he said, I need help. And he began to describe where he had been and what he had done, and he was convinced that he was diseased. His mouth, his person, he was the living end of life in its degradation. And I picked him up and I put my arms around him and I said, you've come to the place where God wanted you to be years ago. Let's deal with it right now. I cleaned him up, showered him, got him sober. At 2 o'clock in the morning, outside under the moon, this guy gave his life to Jesus Christ. He said, I've never known what it meant to be really clean. As he began to pour out his life. And he said, I just wish that I could erase about 5 bad years. He did have a disease. It did take its toll on him. As far as I know, he's doing okay now. But here he was, not even 20 years old. Never had a father tell him what you just heard. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. That's smart. That's smart. Fit your Creator into your plan of life. Fit your Creator into your intellectual life. Don't limit it. Let it run free. Let it run fast and let it go and experience the fulfillment of all that your mind will let you. But keep Him in focus. You don't have to cut off your head and commit intellectual suicide because you're a Christian. Some of the sharpest people you'll ever want to meet are believers on the cutting edge of the intellectual world. It's a beautiful blend to watch. And he says, remember Him early in life. That's smart. Before the scars come and dull the edge. And you have to look back and say, when the years are over, I have no delight in them. Ugh. Do that before old age comes. One of the most interesting, and there's even a little humor in this description of old age. An interesting list of old age characteristics is right here in chapter 12. Look at them with me for a moment. Life really does creep up on you. I told you before, about the time your face clears up, your mind gets fuzzy. And here's old Solomon describing it right now. Remember your Creator before the sun, the light, the moon, the stars are darkened, before the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the watchmen of the house tremble, there's a picture of the hands beginning to tremble. And the mighty men stoop, that's the legs, they get weary, they get weak. The grinding ones stand idle. Can you guess what that is? Right, they get less and less in your jaws. And those who look through windows grow dim. That's your eyes. You can't see like you used to see. Man, I realize that. My lenses are so thick when I look at the sun, my pupils smoke. I went to my ophthalmologist. I said, that's it. I look like a snake behind this glass. He says, they're not going to get any thinner. I can't wear contacts. I can't blink over the edges. They'd be that thick. It's incredible. And I got to have bright lights now. I used to be able to read with a flashlight in a tent. Remember? Not now. I got to have 1,000 watts on top to see the words. And the doors on the street are shut, and the sound of the grinding mill is low. That's your ears. You get hard of hearing. And one will arise at the sound of the bird, and all the daughters of song will sing softly. That's insomnia. You wake up early. You get old. You older. You wake up earlier and earlier. And boy, I used to think, man, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sleep late like the young folks do, and I'm getting up at 5 o'clock. I feel like a dummy. I'm out on the patio listening to the birds sing, wondering why I can't sleep. Everybody else is sleeping. I want to say, wake up, guys. If I wake up, everybody else wakes up. Men are afraid of high places and of the terror on the road. That happens when you get old. You take a trip with an old person, and you'll never realize how many calamities were upon. No, don't go too close to the edge. Watch it. Don't get near that. You'll fall over. Break your neck. Now, I remember the comedian who says, for all my life, I thought the only injury I could have as a child was a broken neck. My mother would say, don't go there, you break your neck. Don't fall, break your neck. We took a trip with my mother, God bless her, when she was getting up in years, and we went to Colorado, and we went up that deal, you know. She rode the whole trip looking like this. I'm not looking over the edge. Oh, don't go so close to the edge the entire time. She never enjoyed it because she was so close to the edge, we're going to fall over the edge. That happens when you get old. When you're young, man, you want to hang glide. Yeah, that's fine. Just jump on out there. When you get older, no, you don't want to look at it in the movies. Remember him, verse 6, before the silver cord is broken, then paralysis sets in. This is the old spinal cord. And the golden bowl is crushed. And the pitcher by the well is shattered. There's a coronary. And the wheel of the cistern is crushed. The old respiratory system grinds to a halt. Remember him before death comes. Hey, that is such good counsel. Don't wait till it comes, see. You don't have to keep it up. You don't have to keep going, keep doing all that stuff. Like the one lady who wrote her testimony, she wrote an anxiety poem called Self-Improvement Program. Let me say it again. Self-Improvement Program. When after a recitation of many new advances in everything from needlepoint to guitar to advanced Chinese cooking to primal scream therapy, she concludes this in her poem. I'm working all day and I'm working all night to be good-looking, healthy, and wise, and adored, and contented, and brave, and well-read, and a marvelous hostess, and bilingual, athletic, artistic. Won't someone please stop me? Honest woman. That's what Ecclesiastes is trying to do. Stop. Now just stop. And do what? Well, verse 13, the conclusion. Number one, fear God. That means take him seriously. Number two, obey God. Do what he says. This applies to every person. We have trafficked in perhaps some of the wisest of counsel we could ever hear. Some of us wish we could have heard it 40 years ago. Some of us wish we had heard it directly and correctly when we did hear it. Let me tell you who concerns me the most. That's the kid that's raised in the church, born in a choir loft, never known a Sunday when he wasn't in the joint. Church every Sunday, week after week, month after month, Sunday school, all those badges. Didn't you used to resent kids that had those badges that hang? They'd lean over and go, whoo. I used to want to go all over there. They're the ones that concern me the most because they never know a Sunday when they weren't around. They've heard it all. They've seen it all. I mean, their lips move when you talk about the doctrines. They got it down. Graduated from 8th grade deal. Graduated from high school, summa cum, whatever. Lordy, how come? You know, they got out. Got into college, Christian stuff, Christian school, Christian teaching, Christian parents, Christian truth, Christian churches. And then all of a sudden, boom, the lid goes off. And they wonder why. Somebody, somewhere down the line didn't stop and say, hey, what you're picking up is a whole bunch of cliches about religion. Christ isn't vital in your decision as to what car to drive or what career to choose or what decision to make when you're on that date. Christ isn't real. You're just caught up in a syndrome and you've added a lot of extra vernacular that you've picked up all your life. But now that the bills come due and you're surrounded by the sidewalk jungle of competition, you can't cut it. And you're on that plane headed to nowhere, and you suddenly realize, I am not prepared for life. Midlife crisis. Here I come. I want to tell you, if it could happen to Solomon, it can happen to anybody who hears my voice. Anybody. If it helps you any, I fight like mad that it doesn't happen to me. I address it regularly in my mind. I don't need that stuff. It has no satisfaction. It is an enemy to God. What I need is Him in all of His beauty and perfection and care and loveliness. And I need to live under the cross. If I didn't believe that, I'd be a wild stallion. And if He can slow me down, He can slow you down too. Let's bow together, shall we? For some of you, this message is perhaps the most relevant thing you could have ever heard this year. For others of you, thank God you've come through it. And you see the fallacy of it, and you've just simply had it confirmed. But for some, it still isn't convincing enough. Not convincing enough to break off that affair. Or to say to yourself, I'm going to be satisfied with enough. No, it's for some not that easily learned. Whatever it takes to come to terms with this in your life, I, as your friend and as your shepherd, urge you to do it. The years you have left are a gift from God. You spend them like a coin any way you wish, but only once. Father, I pray for the man or the woman who spent their years paying for braces, buying bikes, giving up what they wanted, raising kids, planning and going through the vacations, continually giving, continually releasing, who are on the very real cutting edge of a crisis. For them I pray, as the hurricane velocity hits them in this world system, I pray for you to give them roots that will not give, will not break, and will not bend. I ask you to raise up from among the young of this church a body of men and women who are balanced, in no way shocked by the world system, but very much in touch with it, knowing fully what it means and what it's like, but by your grace inexperienced in it, and therefore, for the most part, unscarred. And I pray that you will send like missiles of your grace some of these people into lives that haven't the foggiest of what has been declared tonight. I pray that you would put us in touch with and keep us in touch with those that do not know the answers, so that we might learn what questions to ask. We ask not so much for knowledge, but we ask for wisdom. Not so much for being sharp and keen, but for being discerning. And I would pray that you would use this message to help that to be accomplished. Help us in the process not to leave our warm love for Christ, who is our all in all. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.